My name is Claire Morgan. I'm 33 years old, and while I may smile outwardly to the world as a successful graphic designer in Portland, Oregon, inside I'm just fragments of someone who once knew what happiness felt like. I stood before the large window in my 10th floor apartment, silently watching faded yellow maple leaves spiral in the early autumn wind. The gray, murky sky mirrored my mood, gloomy, suffocating, and occasionally flickering with a faint light, a reminder that I was still alive. Behind me, the bedroom lay silent. On the wide bed, the neatly arranged pillows were as cold as my heart had been for over a year. Ever since Liam, the man who had once promised to be by my side forever, left me with nothing more than a reluctant hug and a whisper, "I'm sorry, Claire." Liam Walker, a literature professor at the local university, was my first love. The man I believed God had sent to complete me. Tall, with dark brown tousled hair that always smelled like old books, and hazel eyes that could be both stern and playful. He made my world stop the first time we met at a literature seminar in Seattle. We fell for each other fast, fiercely, and passionately. 3 years of dating, 4 years living together under one roof, filled with plans, dreams, and weekends spent baking homemade bread in our tiny kitchen. I once believed nothing could ever shake that love. But even the most beautiful dreams can shatter. We planned a small family, imagining children running through the backyard on warm summer afternoons. I still remember Liam's eyes lighting up the first time I told him I was pregnant. He lifted me off the ground, spinning me around the living room like a child. But that joy lasted only 10 weeks. One Tuesday morning, after a sudden, sharp pain, I rushed to the hospital. Just hours later, my world collapsed with the doctor's gentle but cold words. "I'm sorry, Claire." I sank into a wordless grief, building invisible walls around myself. I hated the pity in people's eyes. I hated how Liam tried to console me with empty words like, "We're still young, we'll have another chance." One night, after weeks of silent suffering, I screamed at him when he suggested we try again. "You don't understand anything," I shouted, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. "You think another baby can replace ours?" Liam said nothing. He just stood there, his eyes full of sadness and helplessness. From that moment on, the cracks between us weren't just tiny fractures. They were gaping chasms, silently spreading through a house that had once been filled with laughter. No more late Sunday breakfasts, no more spontaneous walks in the park, just silence, stretching long and heavy like a never-ending sad song. A year after losing our baby, on a gloomy afternoon that matched my mood, Liam packed his bags into his old car. He wore the gray suit he once wore to our simple but love-filled wedding. "I don't know how to reach you anymore," Liam said, his voice deep and tired. He didn't wait for me to respond. He simply closed the door gently behind him and drove off into the misty rain. I stood there, frozen, my heart feeling both hollowed out and oddly relieved. Deep down, I knew if he had turned around, if he had said one word, if he had reached out, I would have run after him without hesitation. But he didn't. We were both too exhausted to save what little was left. The divorce came quickly. A few meetings at the lawyer's office, a few cold signatures on asset division papers, and then silence. No texts, no calls, as if we had never been a part of each other's lives. To this day, I still live in the old apartment, where every corner breathes of a past life. I still go to work, still offer polite smiles in meetings, still sip my morning coffee like a machine running on autopilot. But on gray afternoons like this, when Portland is swallowed by ash-colored clouds, I feel it more than ever. I am alone, left with broken memories I don't know how to piece back together. I remember exactly the day everything started slipping out of my hands. It was a rare, sunny Saturday morning in May, with tiny buds just peeking out along the tree-lined streets. Liam and I sat on the familiar sofa, looking at the tiny ultrasound pictures, where even faint, blurry dots were enough to make us cry with happiness. We had already picked names, even though it was too early. I loved the name Eliza if it was a girl. Liam favored Noah for a boy. We agreed to wait until birth for the surprise. Every night, Liam would place his hand on my belly, whispering old fairy tales in his warm, soothing voice, making me giggle and believe our child was growing up surrounded by pure love. But that happiness was as fleeting as a light drizzle over the city. That morning I woke with a strange pain. At first it was just dull, but it soon turned into sharp, twisting agony. Blood soaked my thin nightgown. I barely had time to cry out before the world spun around me. Liam carried me to the car, his hands trembling as he buckled my seatbelt, his voice repeating, "It's okay, Claire. Everything's going to be fine." But it wasn't fine. I still remember the doctor's eyes too used to delivering bad news. A slow shake of the head. A breath, soft but soul-cutting phrase. "I'm sorry." From that moment, it felt like everything inside me drained away. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, gripping the cold hospital sheet, my heart hollow as if a part of my soul had been swept away forever. The days that followed were a blur stitched together by darkness. I didn't leave my room. I didn't eat. I didn't speak to anyone. Not even Liam. He quietly left food by the door, slipping little notes with kind words. I ignored them all as if every effort only magnified the loss I was drowning in. I buried myself in grief like a drowning person refusing rescue. Liam, somehow, kept trying. He endured my silence, my coldness. He organized movie nights, cooked my favorite dishes, even took me on walks around the small backyard garden. But I only walked beside him, like a ghost. I never once took his hand, never once returned his forced smiles. The breaking point came one early fall evening. In a desperate moment, Liam suggested, "Claire, maybe we could try again? Maybe if we had another baby?" I didn't let him finish. I sprang to my feet, my voice breaking into sharp, jagged pieces. "You think another child could replace our baby? How can you be so easy about this?" Liam froze. The look in his eyes, I'll never forget, was full of pain and heartbreak. He gave a small nod, then turned away, as quietly as a man who had just lost the most precious thing in his life. From that night on, the distance between us became a canyon. No more clumsy attempts to touch, no more hollow words of comfort. Just two people sharing a house, growing farther apart like two planets falling out of orbit. Eventually, Liam said he needed a few days away to think. I nodded, not asking questions, not trying to stop him. When he returned, the last flicker of light between us was gone. No accusations, no fights. We signed the divorce papers with a cold calmness, like two strangers who had accidentally wandered into each other's lives and finally woke up. It didn't end with screams or tears, but with a silence so deafening it left scars. But deep down I know, it wasn't one single tragedy that destroyed us, it was the silence. The quiet, lingering fog that wrapped around our hearts and slowly, quietly, pulled us apart. And from that day on, I lived through silent months, where memories and emptiness tangled together so tightly, I couldn't tell nostalgia from regret. 2 years have passed since Liam left my life, and while the world around me kept changing, I remained stuck. Portland cycled through countless seasons of rain and sun, and the streets where we once walked hand in hand now blurred into fading traces in my memory. I stayed in the same old apartment, despite friends urging me time and again to move somewhere new, to start over. My bedroom, the small kitchen, even the bookshelf by the window. Every corner still whispered of Liam, even though he had been gone for so long. Inside the left compartment of the oak wardrobe were the clothes he left behind. I had tried many times to clear them out, but every time I opened the door, the faint scent of his old cologne would stab straight through me, making my hands tremble before I slammed it shut, pretending it had never been opened. But this morning, with soft sunlight filtering through the windows, touching every corner of the room, I knew I couldn't postpone it any longer. I told myself, it's time to let go. It's time to truly say goodbye. I pulled a large cardboard box from the storage room and placed it in the middle of the bedroom. My fingers trembled slightly as I slid open the wardrobe, as if even a light touch could make the past collapse at my feet. The blue sweater he wore during our first winter together. The white striped shirt I bought him for our first wedding anniversary. Little, simple things holding a sky full of memories. I folded each item carefully, as if handling fragile memories about to slip away. Finally, my hand touched the gray suit, the one Liam wore at our wedding and again the day he left. The fabric was slightly worn at the lapels, but it still held that polished, solemn aura that had always been part of him. However, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to just fold it and place it into the box like the rest. But instinct told me to check the pockets. Maybe to be sure, or maybe, deep down, hoping to find something left behind. And I slid my hand into the inner pocket, still crisp with its old crease. My fingers brushed against something. Not keys, not coins as I expected, but a small, folded piece of paper, yellowed slightly with age. My heart thundered as I gently pulled it out. Across the paper, Liam's familiar handwriting appeared. Soft, hurried, as if he had written it during a restless night. Claire, the first line read, written in deep blue ink. I stumbled back and sat down hard on the edge of the bed, my hands shaking as I unfolded the note. Inside, the words were crammed together, sentences breaking off as if someone had struggled to say all the things left unsaid. Claire, if you find this letter, it means I didn't have the courage to give it to you when it mattered. I'm sorry for leaving without fighting harder. Not because I didn't love you, but because every day I watched you drown in pain, I felt more helpless than ever. I thought you needed space, and foolishly, I believed disappearing would help. Tears blurred my vision before I even realized they had come. I kept reading, every word cutting into me. I still love you, Claire. I love your sadness, your silence. If you ever remember me, please call. I'll wait. 1 year, 5 years, a lifetime. I clutched the letter tight, as if letting go would make it vanish like an unfinished dream. My mind spun with 1,000 thoughts. Why had Liam never given me this letter? Had he really waited for me all this time? Or was this just a too late goodbye? I looked around the room, everything suddenly feeling unfamiliar. The suit on the bed, the half-packed box, the damp letter in my hands. Everything pushed me toward a crossroads I hadn't seen coming. A quiet, urgent question formed in my mind. Is it still possible? I sat frozen on the edge of the bed, Liam's crumpled letter burning in my hand, my heartbeat pounding so loudly I could hear it echoing through the long, silent room. I stared at his uneven handwriting, my eyes swimming with tears. It was unbelievable. For 2 years, everything I needed, everything I had longed for, had been right here, just one cabinet door away, one moment of courage away. All the anger, the pain, the sleepless nights battling feelings of abandonment, suddenly crumpled, leaving only a suffocating regret. Liam hadn't left because he was tired or bored. He had left thinking it would save my withering soul. He had loved me in a way I hadn't been able to see then, quietly, desperately, heartbreakingly sincere. I laid the letter on my knee and buried my face in my hands, feeling hot tears streaming down my cheeks. I don't know how long I sat there, minutes or maybe hours, but when I finally lifted my head, something inside me had shifted. A fragile light pierced through the dense fog in my heart. I carefully folded the letter and placed it inside an old notebook, the one where I once sketched design ideas and jotted down plans for our future. Stepping into the living room, I looked around the apartment, once a warm home for 2 hopeful people. Everything was still there. The landscape painting he gave me for our 2nd anniversary, the wooden clock we picked out at a flea market, the mismatched tea mugs we had laughed over for hours because we couldn't agree on a set. Each object whispered a reminder. It wasn't all sadness. There had been so much laughter, so much love, so many shared dreams. I pulled out my phone. The screen lit up, 5:47 p.m. My finger hovered over the contacts icon, trembling, as if one swipe could throw open a door I wasn't sure I had the courage to walk through. I scrolled to Liam's number, the number I had never deleted, whether out of habit or silent stubbornness. My heart raced as I saw his name. Liam Walker. I took a deep breath, telling myself, if I don't do this today, I may regret it forever. I pressed call. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Each second felt longer than a century. I was about to hang up when a voice answered, rough and full of surprise. Hello? His voice. Unmistakable. A part of me wanted to burst into tears, but I gripped the phone tightly, trying to keep my voice steady. Liam? It's me, Claire. Silence on the other end. Long enough that I thought I had made an unforgivable mistake. Then he spoke, his voice trembling. Claire, are you okay? A sad smile tugged at my lips. Okay? Was anyone ever truly okay after a loss like ours? But I understood he didn't know where to start. Just like me. I found the letter, I whispered, afraid that saying it louder would shatter this fragile moment. In your old suit. Another pause. Then Liam exhaled heavily, a sigh carrying all the words left unsaid. I wrote it the night before I left, he said slowly, but I was too much of a coward to give it to you. I squeezed the phone tighter. I wish I had found it sooner. I wish that too, Liam whispered. Outside the window, a soft rain had begun to fall over Portland, the drops sparkling like diamonds in the streetlights. I closed my eyes, letting the sound of rain soothe old wounds. Are you still there? I asked, my voice so small I barely heard it myself. I never went far, Claire. My lips trembled, not sure if it was from emotion or from the fragile hope rising inside me. Can we talk? I asked, my palms damp with sweat. I'll come whenever you want, Liam answered without hesitation. And for the first time in a very long time I realized, some losses seem to steal everything, but deep down something still waits to be reborn. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, listening to Liam's breathing on the other end, as if just hearing him could fill the void that had gnawed at me for 2 long years. Do you still have that letter? He asked, his voice hesitant, like he feared touching a wound not yet healed. I do, I whispered. I've read it over and over, every word. Silence again. But this time it wasn't suffocating. It was full of waiting. Of things still left unsaid. I took a deep breath and looked out the window, where the rain had begun to fall harder. Under the flickering streetlights, each drop hit the ground like a shattered diamond. In the letter, I began, my throat tight. You wrote about how you grieved for our baby too. How you had dreamed of them. Claire, Liam whispered, his voice breaking. I never stopped thinking about our baby, about you, about everything we lost. I closed my eyes and let the tears fall freely. I sobbed. I thought I was the only one carrying that pain. I hated you for seeming so strong, for going on like nothing had happened. I was scared, Liam said, his voice cracking. I was terrified that if you saw my pain it would crush you. I thought I had to stay strong for you, but in doing so I made you feel even more alone. Every word he spoke pierced through the walls I had built around my heart all these years. We were both wrong, I whispered. We lost each other, when we should have held on tighter. I regret it, Liam burst out, as if releasing years of bottled-up emotions. I regret it every single day, Claire. I should have stayed. I should have fought for you, for us, but I let fear control me. I leaned my forehead against the cold window frame, hot tears streaming down, mixing with the sound of rain beating against the glass. I regret it too, I replied. I locked myself inside my own pain and pushed you away. I didn't give you a chance. I didn't even give myself a chance. Outside the rain kept falling, but inside me something began to melt. Layers of loneliness, resentment, guilt. Slowly they were thawing under the weight of words that had never been spoken. Claire, Liam said, his voice low and warm like a whisper in the night. I don't expect things to go back to how they were. We've changed. We've grown after everything we lost. But if you'll let me, I want to find you again, find us again. Even if we have to start from the smallest things. I laughed through my tears, a choked, relieved laugher. Do you still like walking in the rain? I asked, my voice trembling. I still do, he answered, and I could hear a faint smile in his voice. As long as you're with me. I looked out at the world beyond, where the last leaves of fall were bending under the cold rain, but inside me, a tiny green shoot was waking up. And, can we meet tomorrow? I whispered, afraid that speaking louder would make the moment disappear. I'll be there, Liam said firmly, anywhere, anytime. I hung up the phone, overwhelmed by a strange feeling. Not quite happiness, not quite sadness, but a fragile, pure hope, like a sprout pushing through after a long winter. I clutched the notebook with his letter inside, pressing it against my heart like holding on to a precious piece of memory. The next morning, Portland's sky was impossibly clear after the night's rain. The air felt freshly washed, a brilliant blue stretching above, with thin sunlight filtering through the bare branches. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting a simple cream-colored knit dress. Not too fancy, not too casual. Just enough to show that today mattered, but not so much that it carried overwhelming expectations. I brushed my hair lightly, added a touch of soft peach lipstick to brighten the paleness from a sleepless night. My grayish-blue eyes reflected back at me, carrying a glimmer of hope I'd thought I'd lost long ago. We agreed to meet at a small cafe tucked along the Willamette River, a favorite escape of ours when life felt too heavy. I arrived 10 minutes early, my hands trembling slightly. I chose a quiet corner table with a view of the peaceful river, the willow branches swaying in the light breeze. Liam arrived not long after. I recognized him instantly. He was still tall, still had that calm presence, but he looked thinner, and a few strands of gray dusted his temples. Yet his deep hazel eyes, the same ones that once stole my breath away the first time we met, were unchanged, though now layered with depths I had never fully understood before. He stopped in front of my table, smiling shyly, a hesitant smile that held more than 1,000 unspoken words. "Hi," Liam said softly. "Hi," I replied, my voice slightly trembling too. He sat down across from me. At first we exchanged awkward small talk, how work was going, how our health was holding up, whether we kept in touch with old friends. The conversation drifted gently but tensely, like two strangers trying to find remnants of a shared warmth. A server brought us coffee. I thanked them and clutched the ceramic cup, seeking some steady ground. Finally, Liam broke through the thin sheet of ice between us. "Claire," he said hesitantly, his eyes never leaving mine. "About the letter. I know it's late to say it, but every word in it was true." I looked up, meeting his gaze. "I know," I whispered. When I read it, I realized I had misunderstood so much these past 2 years. Liam sighed, resting his elbows on the table, his hands intertwined. "So did I," he admitted. "I let fear and guilt guide me instead of fighting to hold on to you. I thought stepping away was the best way for you to heal, but in the end, all I did was make things worse." I felt my heart tighten. But it wasn't the raw pain of before. It was a gentler sadness, mingled with understanding. "I was wrong too," I said softly. "I shut down. I pushed you away. I didn't allow myself to be vulnerable with you. I disappeared even when you were right there beside me." We looked at each other, saying nothing more, but in his eyes I saw a deep empathy, a maturity we hadn't yet known back then. "I've been seeing a therapist," Liam said after a long pause. I realized hiding the pain only made it rot inside me. I smiled gently. "Me too. I learned that facing pain is the only way to heal." Liam leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Maybe we had to lose everything to finally learn how to truly listen." I nodded, gazing out at the river shimmering in the afternoon sun. "We've changed," I said quietly, "but not for the worse." Liam smiled. Not the dreamy smile of the boy I once knew, but the smile of a man who had faced heartbreak and now treasured fragile things even more. "I don't wish to go back," Liam said in a low, steady voice. "I just hope that, if you're willing, we can move forward, with everything we've learned." I looked at him, my heart trembling like the willow branches outside in the gentle breeze. And in that moment I knew. We couldn't go back to what we had, but we could build something new. Stronger, deeper, and truly ours. "Let's try again," I said, smiling through my tears. Liam's eyes lit up, like the first ray of sun after a long, dark winter. The days after that first meeting passed like a soft, refreshing breeze through my life. No rush, no pressure, just small, quiet moments that made me feel alive again. Liam and I met a few times a week, sometimes just for walks along the river, coffee dates at our familiar spot, or reading side by side in Forest Park. No talks about the future, no forcing anything. We simply enjoyed being in each other's presence, like people learning to walk again after a painful fall. Each conversation, each glance, each quiet smile slowly mended the invisible cracks that pain and time had carved between us. One chilly November afternoon, as Portland wrapped itself in a gray, misty coat, Liam and I strolled through the Old Town district. The wind rushed past, carrying the earthy scent of fallen leaves, and out of nowhere I found myself asking, Do you still think about our baby? Liam froze, his gaze turning somber. Then he nodded, steady and sure. Every day, he whispered, not in the old agonizing way, but as a part of us, a beautiful part. I bit my lip, fighting back a fresh wave of tears. His words, so gentle and honest, felt like a soft hand finally touching an old, lingering wound. I feel the same, I whispered. It doesn't hurt like it used to, but I still remember, and I think, no matter what, our baby taught us how to love more deeply. Liam gently squeezed my hand, warm and steady. No more words were needed. We simply walked together in silence, under the quiet city lights glowing gold. The more we met, the clearer our changes became. There were no more suffocating expectations, no more vague fears. We learned to truly listen to each other, not to reply but to understand. One evening, sitting on the steps outside my house, Liam confessed, I used to think I always had to be strong to shield you, but now I realized you never needed a protector. You needed a partner. I smiled and leaned my head against his shoulder. And I needed to learn how to let myself be vulnerable, I whispered. Not because I was weak, but because I didn't have to be strong all the time. Little by little, the walls between us crumbled, replaced by a trust stronger and more lasting than before. One early December evening, when snow had just started dusting the rooftops, Liam invited me over to his new apartment, a small but cozy space filled with soft golden light. He had prepared a simple dinner, spaghetti with tomato sauce, a salad, and a bottle of red wine. Nothing fancy, but every detail made me feel strangely safe. After dinner, we curled up on his small sofa, wrapped in a thick-knit blanket. Liam played soft jazz in the background, and the room felt like a whole different world. Just the two of us. No pain, no regrets. Claire, Liam said, his voice deep and pleading. I turned toward him and met his eyes. No longer guarded, no longer hesitant, but full of endless emotion. I can't promise I'll never make you sad, he said, his voice thick with honesty. I can't promise our life will be nothing but sunshine. But I promise this time, I won't leave, no matter what. My heart trembled, but it wasn't from fear. It was acceptance, growth, a silent answer to everything we had survived. I nodded softly, resting my head on his shoulder, listening to his heartbeat, a gentle melody in the cold winter night. For the first time in a very long while, I truly believed we could continue our love story. Not with naive promises, but with all the scars, forgiveness, and deep love life had taught us to treasure. The days that followed felt like a brand new chapter for me and Liam. Quiet, but heavy with the weight of maturity. We didn't rush to label what we had. We didn't force the future to mirror the past that had broken. We simply lived each moment, cherishing every small happiness like stepping stones toward a longer journey. One winter afternoon, as the cold wind seeped through the window frames, I walked into Liam's apartment and found him sitting at his desk, writing intently. The warm light spilled over the pages spread in front of him, creating a scene that felt almost magical. I approached, curious. What are you working on? Liam looked up, a shy glimmer in his eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. He quickly tried to cover the papers like a kid caught hiding a surprise. Oh, I'm writing, he admitted. A story. Actually, our story. I froze. You may. Not exactly, Liam said with a small smile. I changed the names, the setting, but the emotions are the same. About two people who lost each other in a storm of pain and found each other again after learning to forgive themselves. I stepped closer and wrapped my arms around him from behind, resting my chin on his shoulder. I want to read it, I whispered. Not yet, Liam said playfully, at least not until I'm sure it's good enough that you won't toss it into the fireplace. I laughed, a lightness spreading through me. A part of me that had been frozen for so long was finally melting under this quiet tenderness. In the weeks that followed, I watched Liam carefully shape our story into a work of art. He spent hours writing, sometimes so focused he wouldn't even notice the hot tea I quietly placed next to him. And I found myself busy in my own way. I took on more freelance design projects, spent my evenings sketching, capturing the beautiful moments of this new chapter we were creating. One snowy night, as thick snow blanketed Portland's rooftops, Liam pulled me close to the fireplace, his eyes glowing with excitement. "I have an idea," he said. "I want to self-publish this book, but not just that. I want it to include illustrations. Drawn by you." I widened my eyes, my heart racing. "Me? No one else but you," Liam said firmly. "Who else understands this story like you do? Who else can capture every pain, every hope, every heartbeat, if not you?" I bit my lip, emotions swelling like a rising tide. For a moment, all the memories came rushing back, the sleepless nights, the hands that once let go out of despair, the days when I thought I would never create again. And now, Liam, the one who had fallen with me to the lowest depths, was reaching out, inviting me to write a new chapter together. I nodded, tears blurring my vision. "I'll draw," I whispered. "We'll tell this story together." From that day on, every day was filled with new energy. Liam sat at one corner of the table writing while I worked at my drawing board. The little apartment became a warm creative studio filled with laughter, soft music, and quiet moments of passion. We discussed every detail, backgrounds, character expressions, color themes, everything, tied to memories and lessons we had etched into our hearts. Finally, after 3 months of relentless work, the finished draft was complete. The book was titled Between the Rainy Seasons, a name Liam thought of one misty morning when I rested my head on his shoulder, gazing out at the blurred Willamette River. We decided to host a small launch event at a riverside cafe, the very place where we had reunited after 2 long years apart. That night, standing before friends and strangers about to hear our story for the first time, Liam squeezed my hand and whispered, "No matter what happens, Claire, we've already had a beautiful journey, and the best part is getting to write it with you." I smiled, my tears shimmering under the warm golden lights. The story of Liam and me wasn't just about finding love again. It was about finding ourselves after loss. We learned how to face pain, forgive mistakes, and open our hearts to new beginnings. Between the Rainy Seasons wasn't just a book. It was a symbol of perseverance, love, and hope. In a world full of uncertainties, I finally understood. Sometimes, the deepest wounds lay the foundation for the most beautiful new beginning. What do you think about Claire and Liam's journey of healing and love? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more touching and heartfelt family stories coming soon.